And now we have House File 619, a bill authored by Representative Erdahl. Representative Erdahl, welcome to the committee. To get the bill before us, I will move House File 619, and this bill will be laid over for possible inclusion. And Representative Erdahl, there's an author's amendment. Would you like to adopt the amendment before you proceed to describe the bill, or how would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Let's do the amendment first.
Okay, so I will further move the author's amendment, the A1 amendment, and we're obligated, I think, to officially take the roll, even though it's non-controversial. Mr. Wilcox.
Hausman.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Tice.
Aye.
Agbaje.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Gomez.
Aye.
Hassan. Hassan. Heinrich.
Aye.
Hur.
Aye.
Jurgens.
Aye.
Olson. Excused. Barr.
Aye.
And Ryer.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that is 11 ayes and 2 excused.
With 11 ayes and 2 excused, that amendment is adopted. And now, Representative Erdahl, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. House File 619 is a bill to provide funding for the Workforce Housing Grant Program. It provides $6 million for the Workforce Housing Grant Program for the 2022-23 biennium. This is a $2 million increase over the program's base appropriation and is equal to the recommendation included in Governor Walz's budget. It increases the maximum grant from 25% of the project cost to 50% of the project cost. Often when a workforce housing grant is added into the financing of a project, the increased cost required to meet the requirements of the grant can be equal or more than the total grant amount. And that's why we have this. In answering Representative Gomez's question, these are multi-family units and are intended for rental. They are a bridge for entry-level positions, people who are just starting out and not ready to buy a home yet, but need a place to live. And going back to some comments, I'll expound a little bit more on what Mr. McMahon was saying of the importance of housing in greater Minnesota and of course across the whole state. But it's very difficult to get people to come out to work in greater Minnesota. And I know Chair Hausman has heard me say this before, if they have no place to live and no one to take care of their children. Too often when housing is not available for our workforce, our employers cannot recruit and hire the employees that they need to address their business needs. Now, in a town that, well, my hometown of Litchfield, we have a situation right now where a major company is expanding, and they'll have 1,000 to 2,000 more workers in their place of employment. And we have in Litchfield, and these are maybe a little old figures is from last year, there were 12 places to rent in Litchfield. So there's basically a large business expanding, a lot more workers coming in, and literally no place for them to live in Litchfield. Now, we have been exploring other options there, and as has been indicated, this is not the only thing, but this bill is an important option for communities that need this type of help, with, of course, the knowledge that other options have to be explored as well. So I guess I appreciate the support of this bill. Certainly appreciate the hearing from Representative Hausman. She and I have worked over the years on housing. Affordable housing and bonding bills is certainly a very important tool that we have to do just as much as we can. So with that, I appreciate your support and any questions you have.
Representative Gomez, did those comments get at your earlier question, or did you want to still follow up?
Yeah, they did. Can I ask a quick other question, Madam Chair? Would you like me to wait?
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, Representative Erdahl, for this effort. I think this is really important, and I appreciate all the information that the testifiers provided about the kind of, to really help us understand how much housing supply and affordability impact every single community across Minnesota. And so I know we're going to need to continue to kind of beat that drum, because there is this sort of mistaken impression that it's just an issue that impacts the urban core. You mentioned that so you're adding 2 million above the base, and that the sort of threshold for support would be moved from 25 to 50% of some kind of cost. And so I'm just wondering if will this increase in the program result in new units being supported beyond what we're doing right now, or will it impact the affordability of the units that we're kind of currently building or are currently in the pipeline, if that makes sense?
Representative Erdahl?
I guess I'm not exactly sure what's implied with the question there. And this is intended to add to do more. And perhaps what we should do, Chair Hausman, is have the other testifiers testify, and then go to questions. All of us.
That we will do that. So we have 3 testifiers. You've heard from 2 of them earlier. Mr. McMahon, welcome back.
Thank you, Chair Hausman and committee members. Again, my name is Scott McMahon, here on behalf of the Greater Minnesota Partnership and the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. First off, I want to thank you for hearing this bill. This is precisely the kind of program that I spoke about in my earlier testimony as having the appropriate impact in our communities. If you were to ask our communities and developers that are doing projects, you will hear them tell you that, frankly, this is one of the most successful and powerful programs that we have. There are challenges with it that this bill works to address, but it is doing what it's intended to do. I do want to appreciate the consideration of Representative Erdahl and others to add funds into this program. The reality is we could have 10 times more money in this program and find qualifying projects to make the investments that have big impacts. So, I understand the challenges across the spectrum that we face with this committee, and funding decisions need to be had. But just know that the ROI on this particular program is tremendous. The issue that we do face with it, and what Representative Erdahl is trying to accomplish with that 25% to 50%, is once this funding comes into play in the overall funding portfolio, we have additional costs that come into the equation. And all too often, those increased costs exceed what the grant amount is for. And so once you have that situation, communities and developers just don't see this as a viable tool for them, even though the intended purpose for it is completely in line with what they're trying to do. And so our hope is that by increasing the funding in the program and adjusting that 25% per project grant maximum to 50%, that what we can do is get the program available to more communities, make it more attractive, and empower it to do what all of us are looking to do with it. So I think, hopefully Representative Gomez, that answers your questions. But again, we highly support this proposal. We know it'll have a big impact on the challenges that we face, and it'll do what it's intended to do. So with that, happy to answer any questions that folks have.
And we'll take the other 2 testifiers and then we'll go to questions. Mr. Adams is back again also. Welcome back.
Madam Chair Hausman, thank you again. Chad Adams, CEO of the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership. I'd just like to offer that there is extraordinary demand for this grant and rental housing in just about every community I talk to across 30 counties in the Southwest and South Central Minnesota. And they're calling us on a regular basis. We don't even have to reach out to them to talk about this grant program because there's that much need. The cost of building homes and apartments, both pre and during the pandemic, have increased so much in the last 10 years that it's virtually impossible to build quality, safe, stable rental apartments that are financially feasible, even with substantial community support, which we've been seeing more and more of over the years in the form of tax incentives, infrastructure, and or free lots that are paired with this grant, we're unable to build an own product and charge the rents that are needed in to cash flow the projects long-term in Greater Minnesota. We've also talked to several cities, EDAs, and HRAs who are interested in building workforce rental housing on their own, but are hesitant because they prefer that the private market or nonprofit developers such as us continue to take that lead on the development and management of properties. And while cities, EDAs, and HRAs may have some advantage to build and own some of that housing, they often don't have the expertise to manage and maintain the properties. And we can't, as a partnership with a conscious mind, advise the public entities to move forward in that direction based on the pro forma financial feasibilities that we provide for such product, as there will be long-term financial sustainability issues if they pursue this route. That's why the partnership and reform to existing programs and policies continues to be the best path forward for nonprofits such as us to meet the extraordinary housing challenges in Greater Minnesota, specifically with workforce rental housing. I've also had the experience of writing and assisting with 2 grant applications for this specific program in the last 5 years, and the program needs some changes, particularly to the funding threshold of currently up to 25% of the state grant for the project total development cost. Our partnership has experienced that up to the 25% grant is not sufficient to support the financial cash flow of workforce housing apartments in Greater Minnesota, in part due to the construction costs and inability to charge the rents again needed in Greater Minnesota to positively cash flow those projects. And while the partnership is a strong supporter of living wages, we've experienced that the 25% grant and required match from the city most oftentimes does not cover the increased cost from the state's prevailing wage requirements for the grant. We've heard frequently from cities that they're not interested in pursuing this great grant program if the grant doesn't cover those increased costs from prevailing wages, unfortunately. And because of all these variables, we support the changes in the bill before you today, authorized by Representative Erdahl. And to Representative Gomez's question, will the additional funding create more units? In our experience in working on the financial pro forma and feasibility of these projects, not every project will need up to 50% of the grant. Some will between 35, 45%. So I really do believe that will increase the amount of housing units that will be constructed in Greater Minnesota. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you. Okay, and now we have Todd Peterson, who is from the City of Roseville, Community Development Coordinator, City of Roseville. Then we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Hausman, and committee members. I'm pleased to have an opportunity to speak on this bill. Workforce housing is a huge issue for communities like Roseville. We have a desperate need to grow to keep up with our local manufacturers, and we just don't have housing. We have 0% vacancy. It's a chronic problem. We've had this problem the entire time I have been working for Roseville, which is nearly 25 years now. And it's a function of the market not being able to work, as was mentioned by Chad and others. The rents that we can charge in rural communities does not cash flow the high cost of production anymore. And while we do have good paying jobs, we have lots of them available, we just don't have the housing to house those people we need to bring in to work at these jobs. We've tapped out our labor force, and without additional housing, we just can't move forward. And so we are very supportive. We were one of the pilots of this workforce housing program when it was created, I think about 10 years ago. So we've had that experience that this is the only housing that we've had built in the last 25 years, was with this workforce housing funds. Without subsidy, that just will not be built. And some of the issues we run into, we currently have an application in for workforce housing grant. Unfortunately, there's only $1.5 million available for the current round. There were 8 applications. We know that they won't all get funded. And we are looking at our project. We would like to add 37 units. And we have a construction cost of about $5.7 million for those 37 units, with about a $2 million appraisal gap. Right now, the city is going to come up with about $1.5 million in subsidy, our own owner equity, and other tax incentives to match the state grant of $500,000 that we hope to get. But that just isn't enough, and we just don't have the resources to be able to put that much forward on every project. So once we do this project, we just won't have the resources to do another project when we need more units, which we will need soon. And so that's where we believe there just needs to be more resources put towards this program, and that some of the challenges we've had with the prevailing wage issue, that if we ask for a grant under prevailing wage at $500,000, that is helpful. If we ask for $1 more than that, and prevailing wage kicks in, we automatically increase the cost of the project by $500,000, which means we need to ask for at least $1 million just to be at the same spot we were at $500,000 once prevailing wage kicks in. So that's the difficulty in making these dollars go far enough to get enough units added in rural Minnesota, where this is really an issue. So I am very supportive of the efforts by Representative Erdahl to increase some of the funding to the program overall, and to change some of the match requirements for local communities like us that we're doing whatever we can to add housing, but it's just really an uphill battle for us to get it in place. And thank you for your time. And
thank you. Thank you for your testimony. And so now, members, do we have questions for the author or the testifiers? Mr. Worth, are there questions?
Madam Chair, there are no questions at this time.
Representative Erdahl.
Madam Chair, Representative Gomez has a question.
Representative Gomez.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. My question kind of about that capacity was answered, so thank you so much for that, Mr. Adams. I guess I'm wondering, I think that Mr. McMahon kind of referred to this, but do we have a good sense of like what the need is across greater Minnesota? You know, like if we were to fund this program at a level that actually met the need for housing in our communities across the state, what funding level would we be looking at? Or maybe we don't know, but if anybody has an idea.
Mr. McMahon or Mr. Adams, who has?
You know, Chair Hausman, I haven't seen a number as to what the actual need is. The challenge we have, as Mr. Adams had alluded to, is that often communities that would apply for this grant based off of what they need in their community don't, because they know that because of economic situations, it's not going to happen. And so, you know, if you think about the number of cities that we have across greater Minnesota, we can do these projects in most every city that we have out there. And so, I mean, that'll give you a sense of the scale that we're dealing with here. And so, you know, I would challenge you that that every dollar that you can put in this program, we can find an effective way to spend it with a high ROI for the state.
And I think that's probably true of every line in the budget, that even though Representative Erdahl with his amendment increased the amount, the point is it is not enough for the challenge, because it is growing. What is it? The increase in greater Minnesota is 13%, a 13% increase in the problem. So probably it's an understatement to say we could do more. Other questions, Mr. Worth?
Well, Madam Chair, Mr. Adams had would like.
Oh, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd just like to add that if this grant program were available tomorrow, we'd probably see dozens of communities applying for it right away. And that's just based on the conversations I've had without marketing the program. I know it would be much larger than that. So there's a lot of funding that could go into this program that would have a major, significant impact. I'm very confident of that.
Further questions, Mr. Worth?
Madam Chair, Representative Tice has a question.
Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Representative Erdahl for bringing this forward, because I think it's a big problem in a lot of different communities. I've just been doing a little digging around here, and Roseville's population, and please correct me, Mr. Peterson, if I'm wrong, but when I look at just Googling it, I'm looking at about 3,000 folks. And I'm thinking you've got some pretty big industries there. And I know part of getting people to come up to Roseau in the first place is having them just come up there and see the way of life. And that's why their needs are just that. How do I get people up here? So you need multifamily. And then once you got them, then we need to have that market housing that they are looking for. And it is really hard to build. And so this is such a multifaceted issue, because I keep saying we got to figure out what we're doing with the cost of housing. And there's many things I see, you know, in some of the bills coming through that just make me go, ugh, we're just not helping housing at all. So I really appreciate Representative Erdahl's bringing this forward, because I look at St. Cloud is really close to Cold Spring. And Cold Spring has a population of about 4,200 folks, but they have, well, it used to be Golden Plump, now it's Pilgrim. And they also have Cold Spring, the granite company, which employs a whole bunch of people. But one of the issues they're having with growing and needing workforce is also transportation, because they don't have the housing for folks to live in the community. So they're coming to St. Cloud, and then they don't have the transportation going back and forth. And I know Metro Bus is trying to find some ways to do it, but it's just really hard for them to figure out how to do it cost effectively. So we're looking at so many different factors in why this bill is so important, because we need it. We just absolutely need it. St. Cloud is always looking, and I think we've got a little bit of a push now on multifamily, but getting that market value home for these folks to move in after they decide they want to stay in the area and have that first home. I mean, it's 260 grand, and that's kind of across the board for a entry level, which I would call entry level. A split level, bi-level home is ridiculous. I mean, we used to build them for just a tad over, you know, 100 grand when my husband and I first got into building. But I also look at, you know, the building prices have substantially gone up. Typically, when the interest rates are low, materials are a little bit higher, but they are not just a little bit higher right now. They are very higher. And we found that out just doing a little bit of remodeling in our home, when just buying base shoe was it just blew us away how much that had gone up. And that's just a little thing, but 2x4s and everything else has gone up as well. So we need to really, really help our folks find what they need in order to bring the housing they need for the people they need. I know we've heard across the board. I heard from somebody just recently in southern Minnesota, they want to expand their business and add 500 jobs. They don't have any housing. They can't find people to come and work. And we're going to see that across the board, especially as we're trying to recover. We're just not seeing the people. And it has so much to do with housing. So I really thank you again, Representative Erdahl. And please, Mr. Peterson, give a high five to Mayor Fabian for me. You've got a good guy. Yeah, you got a good guy sitting with you, and he's been talking about this for a long time. So we need to really, I know Representative Keel has done the same. And I guess my question to you, Representative Erdahl, is there a place for manufactured housing in this as well?
Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I'm not sure. I don't think there is, but if someone can correct me, they can.
Mr. Worth, do we have other questions?
Madam Chair, no other questions at this time.
Okay, Representative Erdahl, final comments to your bill.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate again the hearing. You know, this doesn't solve the problem, but it makes some steps in the right direction. We need to be doing this. We need, as they said earlier, to be doing more for affordable housing. Whatever we can do for housing in Greater Minnesota and in the entire state, we need to do. So thank you.
Representative Erdahl, I learned a couple of days ago one reason why people are drawn to Litchfield, and that is apparently you have the best donut shop in the state.
Well, we have a lot of good things in Litchfield.
Well, thank you very much.
I thought it was so they, as they come to Litchfield, they could go through Darwin and see the biggest ball of twine made by one man. That
too. So this House File 619, as amended, will be laid over for a possible inclusion in our budget bill. Thank you, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you.